Did you make a change right as we started, and now your mic is muted or something? You're talking and I can't hear you. I hate you for doing this. Oh my God.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So welcome back to Server Restart In. It is a World of Warcraft podcast hosted by three opinionated players who like to get together to discuss their thoughts about the current state of the game. My name is Jim, joined by Kristen.
Hello.
And Brian.
Hello.
And hopefully Discord will not screw up again. We won't have to do this again.
Discord restart in.
Oh, God. So we have learned today that the Pug Life is a very hard life. Trying to do keys with people you don't know is a chore.
Terrible.
It is a great exercise in frustration. And yeah, it's just rough.
It sounds like some firsthand experience.
Oh yeah. It was, I don't know. Pugs are it's a crapshoot, in all honesty, right? No matter what type of content you're doing, pugs are random people, right? So you're either going to get somebody that's really good, or you're going to get people that don't understand that standing in behind the tank and taking the tank damage is a good way to die. And yeah, it makes for an interesting day, to say the
It sounds rough. You want to elaborate, maybe? I'm interested now. You got me hooked. Don't leave me hanging. Was it worse than spending an hour and a half on Academy on one boss?
No, because we finished.
Over exaggerating there, but
I mean, we finished the dungeons, but they are, it was rough, right? And going through stuff like this, it kind of like causes you to, especially if you haven't dealt with it before, you start to wonder what the hell's going on. Why are people doing stupid shit? And it just kind of shows that it's easy to take for granted when you have a group of friends and you're all chatting, so you all know what's going on. When as opposed to when you get in a group and there's little to no communication with the other players, and they expect everybody to know what they're thinking, or they don't watch and manage like the group resources. So you got a tank that just keeps pulling without, waiting for the healer to make sure that they've got enough mana for pulls, or over pulling, or making stupid pulls. Nothing like making a pull where one mob makes all the other ones uninterruptible. One of them's a healer, and then everybody just keeps dying because she just wrecks you because everything's up for 20 minutes. Now,
man, that sounds rough.
20 minutes is an exaggeration, but
no, that's fair. I mean, was it like a high key or something, and it got trashed because of it, or what?
The first one was a 13.
It was a 13. It was a 13 halls, right?
No, it was a 15 halls. It was a 13.
Nope.
Yes.
13 Academy, 15 halls, right?
Not Academy. Okay. Azure.
Vault. They all have similar names, and it's it's dumb. Dumb. But yeah, so the 15, the halls, it's like when you first go in and whatever, it's like we didn't time either of them. We completed them, but it's a matter of making one bad pull and not being able to recover from it, because it's a high key. The damage output is ridiculous. You have a combination of mobs that you really shouldn't have. That makes it extremely difficult. You can't do any type of crowd control. because they're all immune to it now because the big dude's there. And it just, I don't know, it just feels like they don't read the room, so to speak, of what the rest of the party comp is. To kind of like, because this is after the first boss, this is after a couple of pulls and all that stuff, you know. So I mean, like, you should really kind of have an idea of what's going on. And you know, as a tank, you should adjust accordingly. You know, if people are dying, maybe it's because the pulls are too big and maybe you need to adjust it. You know, so you know, you do that. And it's just, I don't know. People get this thing, and it's, I guess, have been inoculated to it, because at the end of Shadowlands, almost said Shadow Song. At the end of Shadowlands, you know, they had season 4, and I wanted to do the Keymaster, so I pugged it. And the thing I learned doing that is that it takes a while to kind of experience all the different types of groups you can get. You know, it's like you can get an overly...
Which is a weird dynamic to have to consider.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's like driving, right? It's like, it takes you, I think my driver's ed teacher said something like 10 years or something like that before you've really encountered most driving conditions. I've still never driven in a sandstorm, and that, well, you know what I mean? It's like, I've driven in snow, I've driven in ice, I've driven in high winds, torrential rains. I haven't really driven in a hurricane because I wasn't of driving age when I lived in hurricane country, you know, but like driven when there's tornadoes around and stuff like that, but like there's like no tornadoes, or I'm sorry, like I said, sandstorms, right? You know, so it's like when you start pugging, it's like you're going to get the overly cautious group where like they're just going so slow, right? And some people find that frustrating because they're used to doing things at a higher pace. You're going to get the people that want to go. And then you're going to get a mix of whatever. You know, you're going to get people that don't know the optimal routes. You're going to get people that know the optimal routes, but don't understand that not everybody can do it. You know, it's like there were some in Shadowlands when we were doing Karazhan keys. It's like before the chess boss. A common strat was to pop invis potions and run by the mobs on that thing because they sucked on higher keys. Well, if you are not used to doing that, you didn't necessarily have pots. And when you're pugging, it's cross factions. You can't necessarily trade either. You know what I mean? It's like little things like that. And it doesn't help that the MDI has just happened. So everybody has seen all these like super...
all the strats.
Yeah. All the super high
strats.
end, you know, the 0.01 percenters, what they do.
Oh, God.
You know, and everybody gets in their idea and they think you can do this. Because when we were doing Vault, there's a an alternate path where you kill down to the second boss and then you basically skip a bunch of trash and you can skip down to the third boss without having to do the rooms with all the frogs and stuff. But it, you know, involves going a certain way and then jumping down without dying and all that stuff. And it was just, if you do it correctly, it saves a lot of time and all that stuff. But, you know, if you just know the basic concept of it and do it wrong, everybody's dead. You know, and it's just, I don't know, it's frustrating. And it's frustrating for people that haven't been used to doing those kind of things, running with all the idiots, so to speak, that are out there.
He means me. It was very frustrating for me.
Yeah, she didn't have a good time.
I was healing it, and it was very stressful.
Well, not to mention that, like, Mythic Plus is not forgiving when you get into those situations. So
Yeah.
It's,
you know what I mean? It's not like you can drop it and go back and do it. Like, you're literally going to lose out on something if it doesn't go right. So
I
it's
guess-
kind of, I wouldn't call it a flawed system, but it's definitely not a system that, yeah, it could be better, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
I guess I just don't understand why people, especially on a fortified week, pull all the trash mobs that they pull. You don't do wall to wall. I mean, maybe if you are doing plus 20s and 25s, maybe that's what they do. But at a 15,
that's the whole thing with people not reading the room and understanding what, not taking time to look and see what people are running to figure out, it's like, can we do this? Like, the first big pull should be kind of a litmus test,
right?
Yeah.
For people, and it's like, God, do people even know what a litmus test is anymore?
No, probably not.
But anyway, yeah, and it's just, it's hard to separate yourself from that kind of stuff because, you get used to doing things a certain way, running with certain people, it's less frustrating when it's people because that they're not necessarily going to be mad at you and that kind of stuff, or they're not going to leave.
Yeah, they're kind of coupled to the relationship at that point, so it's a little bit easier to manage expectations.
Right. Well, and when things start going bad too, in keys, it's like you can start to see people just be like, "Well, we're not going to time it," and they just leave. And it ruins it for everybody else. And it's just like,
well, that too. Like, and if it's your key, they're not really losing out, are they? Like,
No.
did they get a debuff or anything? Like,
no.
I mean, and we were lucky; nobody left. We finished the keys
on the first one. It was one of the other DPS's key, and like later on, like in the middle, he was just like, it's like, I just want to do this on completion. Please don't leave. And we weren't going to leave. And I think it was mainly, worried about the tank dropping kind of thing, but it's just, that is a fear, right? It's like you're trying to get your key done because you want to get something in your vault and like you're trying to do it. And like, let's say, you did whatever, like this is a 13, maybe that's like the highest, like possible point of gear this person is going to get, and it's just, it's not, it's not an easy thing to do is to put yourself out there and hope that you get decent people. Now, some people, want to be carried. Some people, they're just basically try to get all the, the highest, geared or highest, IO score people on there to do, whatever. And that can be misleading because you can get people that carry to higher scores and stuff like that. And it's just,
or only run with specific people like us, so we don't have a lot of experience with pugging people.
Right. Well, you don't.
So we're used to doing it. I'm used to doing it a specific way.
Right.
And not the way that the pugs do it,
And the thing is that I've pugged them a lot. So I know that it's a crapshoot, right? I know that odds are you get a mediocre group, right? You hope for a good group that's just going to knock it out of the fucking water. Because that happens from time to time. You get one where, and it's a little bit easier to find when you're solo. Because then, they're like picking piecemeal. And like, as a group, the three of us that were queuing, we were, we're a strong core group. But, when you have a different tank and all that stuff, it makes it more difficult. So it's like you just hope that you're going to get somebody that knows what they're doing and knows how to use their abilities and knows how to do the pulls correctly and all that stuff, or at least in the best way possible. But usually you're like, you got to be prepared for the group that falls apart too, because that can happen too. You can get in there, you can get 3 pulls in and maybe get to a first boss, and then just wipe on it 2 or 3 times, and then people just go, I'm done. And it's rough, and you got to kind of like not take it personally, which is a hard thing to do. It's hard to go in there, especially.
It's a lot of time too, right? Like, so I mean, in
Yeah.
reality, is like, what do you do other than just not do it? You know,
You try to find a group of people to do it, and then that's hard to schedule.
Yeah.
Not everybody
I mean,
has the.
Even trying to encourage like voice chat or something like that to be more, because obviously, like, I think generally, I'm sure that given most people talking together would probably work a hell of a lot more better, right? And people will probably be more inclined to work together if they could just talk. But then that's just not a very natural thing to flow into on the web, even after all these years of the internet, right? So
Well-
even in video games, it's just, even when voice chat's been in since BC,
Yeah.
it's just not something easy to flow into. So now you have this feature that really shines whenever you have a well, put together group, given that like people aren't there just to be malicious. And it's just not like you have a barrier, because it's really hard to communicate effectively, and really even to vet the people that you're with. Chatting over voice would probably go a long way by comparison. So, like, obviously, like, to expect people to get on and be in voice chat and stuff like that, I think is just dumb for a game.
It's one thing if you're doing longer content, like if you're pugging a raid group, right, and you're starting like a full fresh run. It's like you may give out voice stuff because there's a lot of
maybe. I mean, realistically though, like, even like, just consider that, like, what it is, right? I mean, just people logging in to go generally have fun together, right? Like, it makes sense that it's challenging, but also, does it have to be so challenging that you have to coordinate over voice to get it to work out? Like, and I think that's where, like, obviously Raid Finder and all that garbage shines, because that's not like, it provides that level that you don't need that. And I'm not necessarily saying that like Mythic. Well, you know what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they've gotten a little bit more challenging, I think, recently, but traditionally they really haven't kind of met that threshold, if you will. And like, while I don't think that Mythic Plus needs the level of LFD, I think it's already got the level of LFD that everybody hates, right?
the
and then that's what you're
uncoordinated stuff. Yeah.
It was the uncoordinated pugging, and all that stuff. So it's like, my thought is like, where maybe there's a problem that's not being addressed, right? Like, I know what the problem is in my mind, or my biased opinion says that Mythic Plus is not what it really should be. And that's really just taking a simple feature like a dungeon and then trying to juice the fuck out of it. I think that's exactly what they've done wrong to try to create challenging content. Because they put it on top of a recipe that's already been defined by the community, right? And really the whole core point of a dungeon is to get in and get out. Like, the idea of Mythic Plus came about from what? Pandaria and the timed runs.
Oh, the challenge.
The challenge runs or whatever.
Yeah, the challenge
dungeons.
modes.
Yeah.
And so that stuff might be interesting, but at the same time, like, there's probably a better way to do that type of stuff. So, like, I know I like the theory craft a lot about a better World of Warcraft, but I won't get into it this time. But I do think it's more of like, there's no good way to handle it, because it's just not. It didn't have a solid foundation to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna go build a house on a fishing boat. It's not meant to do that.
Well,
I probably could, but it's not meant to be used that way. And I don't think the concept of a dungeon and people getting together and running a dungeon, I don't think was ever meant to be so, not necessarily convoluted, right? But so involved that it needed the level of coordination just to make sure that people don't have to get into like, it feels like shit when you get into something like that and you dedicate your time to it and it's just a shit show.
Yeah, I think
Like, like where else do we do that in our lives? You know what I mean? Like, I know we waste a lot of time doing things in our lives that we don't want to do and all that garbage. But when we choose to do something that's entertaining for us, how often do we choose to waste an hour gambling potentially that it may be a bad experience? Like,
oh, fuck. Every orchestra rehearsal.
oh, like you know what I mean? It's just it's one of those things. Like,
the thing with it is,
needs
right?
to be rethought.
Well,
Is all.
I don't think it does, and I think that
No, I think it absolutely does.
I
Jim,
agree.
Consider
Well, no,
even.
consider
I don't wanna
what niche it's filling. Right? High-end keys are akin to heroic and mythic raids, but 5-man content. What type of coordination goes into those? A lot, right? You know, there's more coordination required for heroic, there's more mechanics, and especially mythic. So, like, you don't really like pug mythic raids, right? You can to a certain thing, but they're gonna be doing, you know, voice chat and all that stuff. It's kind of the same thing when you start getting probably 15 plus keys. It's like hitting heroic level stuff or higher.
But you have to consider though, like when you consider Mythic Plus, right? You have a key that you've earned one way or another. Someone's going to use their key to start that run, and then you may spend a hell of a lot of time and not get to where you wanted to be. I'm not saying that you should win every time, but like maybe the whole dungeon doesn't need to be timed. Maybe to each boss needs to be timed, right? So that the failure points are more consolidated. And it's not like a raid is, right? Where you run for 10 fucking minutes on a boss and then one stupid mistake and it's all over. Like that is the same type of planned failure that kind of sucks in that system, right?
Yeah.
And so like because honestly, like yes, they are fun to a certain extent, and the more challenging they get, it flows with the concept of like getting more gear and being more prepared, right? Just beyond the level of knowing your character and what to press at one time. When you start gearing up, you flow along with those dungeons, they get more difficult. Yeah, that can be fun. But given a scenario where like you have to spend so much time and just something breaks it, or somebody can leave and it breaks, like it's so unfucking forgiving, right?
Right.
And not only do you spend your money on this fucking game, you spend your lifetime on it, right? And that is like something I think they fucking overly take for granted in this game. And so, and generally speaking, the reward is not so great when you think about it, right? Because even when like there's always a bigger number, you reach the bigger number, then you go do something else, and that's a little bit easier. That's the reward. You know, it used to be that you would go to a dungeon and you would meet people and it would go on your friends list, and you build a bigger presence of being able to do these things in a more comfortable fashion.
And I think I do agree with that. I think that there's no community building required.
Yeah, no, it's like we went to a throwaway action type of game, but then they tried to keep in these things that require more effort. And, you know, they've already attracted the wrong crowds to be able to support that in a more open fashion. So if you don't plan these things out, like I just think they're gonna, like in most cases, yeah, they're probably not gonna fail. I don't mean like fail, but it's just not gonna be a pleasant experience for a lot of people. And now you're no longer inclusive in your game. You no longer have the ability to just, you know, this is open to everybody, because it's really not, you know, because like for me, I'm not gonna go pug those things socially. I'm so socially awkward. I do not want to have to deal with that stuff. It'll make me feel like shit, and I don't want to have that feeling.
Well,
and so I'm not going to do it.
I'd say you are not in a solo group because I'm pretty sure I know somebody else that's not going to pug.
Not anymore.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people like that, man. It's just so many people that are going to be where they want to, they want to do those things, but the community is just not what it used to be,
Yeah.
and the support's not there. Sorry, that was a very long-winded thing. I
No,
apologize.
it's just unfortunate, you know.
It sucks because like I enjoyed like when we were running, those Mythic Pluses. I only ran a few at the beginning of the expansion, but even in the past, like I do enjoy them. They're just, they're very time-consuming and stuff like that. And
They can
obviously,
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're in there for, I mean, probably like the fastest you can do them in is like 15, 20 minutes, and then some of the timers are up to like 40-ish around there, maybe 45. So yeah, I mean, it is a commitment, but, and it just sucks when, you have a small group of people, right? So you have a group of people that'll do them, and then you have, it's like, but there's casual Mythic Plus people that are, they can skate away with doing things up to a certain level without, because you can make so many mistakes up to a certain level of key before it really starts impacting it, and it's just, different people have different levels of play, and at some point those level of plays impact the ability to do the keys. So you need people that can operate at a higher level, and and then because it gets more difficult and it requires a higher level of concentration and of playing, and it's just like, it's, I don't know, it's, and then you start to get to like comps, it's like, there's a reason there's not that many Frost DKs running high Mythic Plus keys, because the damage output is shit,
Yeah.
It's like even Unholy is a little bit better, but it's not whatever. Now Blood DKs probably do pretty decent, with that stuff, but because there's more of them doing the keys. But it's just like, it sucks because I want to play a Death Knight, and the only way to really do it is to either pug and hope somebody takes you, because back in the Shadowland days, I'd pug keys, and when I was trying to get the last couple of points to hit the Keystone Master stuff, it's like you're sitting there, it's like, oh, I need like 15s and I need these dungeons or whatever, so you're looking for those dungeons, and you just keep applying and getting declined to these groups where they fill up and all that stuff, and it's frustrating. It's hard to do that without having a dedicated group, and it's hard to get a dedicated group when you want, when the people you play with mostly are a fairly casual group of players.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and some people burn out faster than others, and it's just,
Sorry about that.
yeah, I mean, did you raid with us?
No.
You haven't raided? Oh man.
That wasn't really a burnout thing. That was just a timing thing, I think.
Yeah. It's like you would,
it just to correct myself, I'm not burnout on the content at all. But I'm just at a kind of a busy time in my life, so.
yeah, and that happens, right? There's that. Personal life events happen. Burnout's a thing. If you go too hard, too fast, you get whatever with it. It's just other games come out and you get distracted by other games, and, they take your attention, or WoW is your side chick. And that's, you focus on your main one, more, I don't know.
Or it's Jim's sex doll and he just wears it out. Then he gets bored of it.
I don't get bored of WoW.
No, that's not what you said last week. You said you were starting to fizzle a little bit.
A little bit, but I still play every day.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'll log in, I'll do my quests, my world quests and stuff like that.
Jim, how are those work orders going?
Speaking of work orders, It's a good segue. There's some changes coming to the crafting and auction house menus in 1007. They're gonna, I guess they're reducing the font for the recipe tab so you can see more recipes. They're changing the layout and stuff to kind of consolidate to make it a little bit easier to see and understand. But the big thing is that customers will no longer be required to provide all reagents for public work orders. Because right now you have to have everything to put in a public work order. You will only be required to have all of the soulbound items. So things like your awakened items, runes, or...
Oh, I thought it was already set up that way.
No, you have to put in everything right now.
Oh, I mean, so it's really not a win, though, right?
It is...
Like, the win would be, like, you can just put 500K out there, and if somebody has the BOP stuff, they could make it for you.
Well, you still have to get the BOP.
The auction house
well, you still have to get the BOP stuff, like so your sparks or your primal chaos stuff, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like the win would be the other way around.
Well, right now it's like you would have to have every single item, so it means you have to go buy, like, awakened decays or inks or ores or other things, right? Whereas now it's like you don't have to, so you can just throw more money at it, and that might be a way to incentivize people to actually do work orders.
So now people that are picking up work orders have to look at it, assess how much money there is. They don't have the items. Go either buy the items or go and farm the items.
Yeah,
I guess that's not too bad. So you could accept it, then go. Are there time limits on?
It's 30 minutes.
Like 2 days. Oh,
it depends on the order.
On the trinket that I.
Oh,
that was a personal order. I think public orders. No, once you select it, you have 30 minutes to complete it. Putting it up there, it stays on the board for like 2 days.
That's what I mean. So that's not feasible then.
No,
it'd be a huge difference if you could actually go farm the stuff then create it.
But right. So that's going to make crafters be more selective about which work orders they take rather than taking them all. Because if right now you're not disadvantage from just taking an order and crafting it, you're going to get some money and whatever. I don't know if you get art. I don't know if you get the medal or whatever for the artisan's medal.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
But now you look at it and you go, well, okay, I'm gonna have to put in this many mats, but they only put it up for 500. That's not worth the mats I have to put in. I'm not gonna do it. Somebody else might go, I have a shit ton of fucking mats. I'll do it because I need the fucking work order or I need the whatever. You know what I mean? It's like maybe it could be, it could not be. You could maybe have people that are bot farming these things anyways, and it's not gonna make a fucking difference.
I'm still gonna go on a limb and say it's kind of a shitty solution. I feel like it's more
the
of a
way
Band-Aid.
it's the way it should have been when it started. It's not. It's
I agree with that.
Originally, you did not have to do that, and somewhere in the PTR they changed it to where you had to put everything in.
It was the Gator. It has to go through the review of the Gator, and that's what he did.
Does that gate it? I don't think that gated it. It might have.
Well, he doesn't always just gate things. He just makes things stupid too.
Oh. So it's the stupider in the Gator?
Well, his name is stupid. His guild title is Gator, or vice versa. I don't know.
Yeah, we should make a guild called the Gators.
The Gators.
No,
and all the ranks should be.
Do not run dungeons.
You have
Don't level.
You have to get permission signed off from all the officers in the guild before you can queue an LFR.
Yeah, and then you can only kill one boss, and you have to leave. You cannot do more than that.
You have permission to do parental council. If they start on eggnog, you got to leave.
Yeah.
God damn. Oh man. Yeah. Apparently there's some hints and rumors coming around for some old god stuff. Apparently there's been in the Oldemon dungeon. Apparently some of those books mention a new continent or a new zone called
I heard it today. I don't remember what it was. You gotta say it.
A Valeron, because it's like Avalon, but it's a
Yeah, something like
Valeron.
that.
It's like, because like Avalon is like the mystic isle that King Arthur went to, off into the mists. So it's a
Interesting.
Valeron, because there's some notes in there about expeditions that Odin sent out to get some heretics or whatever. So
Mhm.
that could be coming up. I guess there's some stuff about maybe Ishar coming back, because there's like some Naga books and stuff like that floating around.
Nah.
Apparently there's going to be Scarlet Crusade cosmetics coming around.
Oh, not just the tabard.
Not just the tabard, but I mean, there's a lot
Some
of new.
undead heritage armor too. Sorry, what?
Eventually. Well, February is winding up. If you guys haven't out there, if you're listening to this and you haven't gotten your trading post thing done, time's limited for this. Make sure you get all your stuff in so you can get that mount.
Crap. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot about that too.
You have 5 days, man.
The monthly mount. I got
The monthly mount, yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yep. Not really a lot of stuff going around, so.
Oh my God. Sorry. It's been a rough day.
Pugs take it out of you.
I'm drained.
This is why I used to start my day when Shadowlands was in Pug a dungeon in the morning, and if I could find one.
I think it would be easier if you're just DPS.
If you're solo queuing as DPS, yes, it is easier. When you have to heal or when you're healing, it's a lot rougher, because whether
you're
or not
reliant on everybody else doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. And whether or not it's being laid at your feet, it's easy to feel like you're to blame.
Yeah.
Even if nobody
nobody complained about my healing or anything like that. So I mean, that was, nice,
well,
I mean, but people just would get one shot and I'm like, how are you kidding? There's nothing I can do. And that is so frustrating as a healer to have nothing you can do, they just go from 100 to 0, boom, like that. And you're like, what the fuck just happened?
They stirred in piercing shards. I mean, it's exactly everything I told you that was happening. And it's not, it's overpulling and people not doing the mechanics that need to be done. And whether it's because they don't know or whether it's because they're just getting caught off guard or what, I don't know. But it's one of those things that you have to learn to not take personally, right? It's, if people want to, one of the guys that we raided with when he was healing, he downloaded an add-on called Tattle.
Oh,
or Tattletale or whatever.
Yeah.
And so anytime anytime anybody takes
unavoidable avoidable damage,
it pops it up in chat. If it's above a certain percent, it pops up in chat, and at the end of the dungeon, it gives a list of how much avoidable damage each person took. And the smaller the number, the better, right? Which,
I'd be in trouble.
I don't know what counts. I mean, it obviously has to have some sort of way to determine what's avoidable, what's not. Obviously, it's a spell ID thing, right? So it's an add-on, I think, for details. Might be, in stuff, and it's just like it shows you that, it's like I was watching. I'm not gonna lie, I took some, right? Sometimes though, but part of it is there's certain things that need to be interrupted, and unfortunately, I don't have infinite interrupts. So, like, if I'm on cooldown and somebody stuns me with a cast, and then avoidable damage pops up under my feet, there's not much I can do about that. You know what I mean? It's like, and so it's people are expecting other people to do things, and people just aren't using the utilities the way they need to be used sometimes, and that could just be, they're not as familiar with the class or what they have and all that stuff. And I really think that that's something that I think Torghast really helped show people. I think this is one of the best things that Torghast ever did, was it made you, or it offered you powers that empowered abilities you hardly used.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Because it would be things like, as a Frost Decay, it would empower Death Coil or Death and Decay, because at the time Death and Decay was dumb. You didn't get any benefit for Frost Decay for using Death and Decay. Now it gives you cleave or Ablit cleaves, but it's one of those things that it got you kind of used to using these things and seeing where they could be situationally used.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got more familiar with it if you did it enough. So running Torghast over and over and over again allowed you to learn more about your class. So I think in a way it really worked.
Yeah, but the people who needed to do it weren't the people who were doing it.
Sure. And you got people that maybe are new to this expansion and never did it, started a character, leveled up through whatever, and then came to Dragon Isles and didn't do Torghast because they didn't need to for anything. So yeah, there should be something in the game that kind of does that same thing, but
and not in a corny way like the intro thing does. Like the Exiles Reach, they do like a little.
Yeah, that's your main abilities though. Like,
well, right. I mean, that's really the only place, because otherwise, like you got to really play those scenarios to learn those things. So
right. Well, and that's what I think too, is like there should be something that is expansion agnostic, and it could just be make it.
Well, what was the other thing that remember the thing that Kristen was talking about last week that was in Pandaland?
Oh, the trials.
Yeah,
the trial. Yeah, because it was kind of like that a little bit.
Yes and no, right? That was mainly focused on your thing. I don't think it went to the extent that Torghast did, right? What they should do, and this is the easiest thing to fucking do with all like the Dragonflights and stuff like that, right? Is you put or not the Dragonflights, the Kirin Tor, right? You have them make basically a fucking holodeck, like from Star Trek. And it's a scenario thing. And you basically make it like Torghast, but it's in the capital city. It's run by the wizards. And you can go in and you can just do gauntlet stuff that's similar to Torghast. And it's not Torghast bad. And it could just be random enemies from all over the world. You could have a Quillbore level. You could have a fucking Harpy level. Or,
Dude, exactly like the gauntlet in Final Fantasy VII. I think maybe we've talked about this before. Final Fantasy VII had the golden saucer, and you could do the gauntlet.
I don't remember the gauntlet from 7.
Like you unlocked like a weapon or material or something like that if you did it. But the gauntlet was like you just stand in a room and random mobs. I think they're random. I don't remember.
Oh.
Are brought in or whatever, right? Yeah. And you try to make it through. So
they had that in Torghast.
Something like that. Yeah.
They had the Jailer's Gauntlet in Torghast like that, but it was all Torghast mobs, right?
Yeah.
Or it was all actually Shadowlands mobs. But you could do something like that, or you could make it more like Torghast itself and have like a little map you have to go through, get from point A to point B. But you could do that with just stuff from around the world because, and when they die, instead of just doing normal, they could like shatter into like little magic dust kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're magical construct type thing. It would be, and make it infinite, like it should have been. Not like they made Torghast. Like it should have been like Torghast was on the PTR that I never got a chance to try out because that would have been amazing. Where you just keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going,
mm-hmm.
As opposed to being like, nope, there's only 8 floors, you're done. Or whatever the hell it was,
Mm-hmm.
There should never have been a cap on it. But yeah, I don't know. You got anything you want to talk about?
Me? Me or her?
Like, not me.
I mean, either of you. We already
covered
No.
my terrible experience with pugging.
Oh. No, I mean I think that yeah, I mean generally speaking, the piece that I kind of addressed this week personally was about the same, so just trying to find ways to help other folks that want to play the game, have fun and not be stressed out trying to do it. So I'm really in the same vein.
Yeah, it's nice when you have things like that, and like you're talking about doing kind of like a laid back guild where people can do stuff like that, and it's just like Kristen back in the day was doing the whatever the raid group stuff was. I don't know, did it have a name? Like it was
No, it was just learning.
Yeah, it was a learning raid thing, but it was mainly it was supposed to be like low anxiety type stuff, for people with anxiety issues or like didn't want to deal with it and all that stuff. And even then, you got to be careful because even that had some fucking issues.
It had some people in it that were definitely toxic.
And it's just
Unfortunately.
like it's a hard thing to do because I mean, what are you gonna do? Have people freaking give you psych evals?
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, one of the things we discussed was that, one, it's the internet. You'll never get away from it. But what you can do is try to encourage good behavior by really just trying to set an example, right? And so, like, if up front the expectation is, like, we have a, not toxic community, more of a family-friendly thing where, people aren't, cutting dirty jokes and stuff like that, and then maybe we set that standard, and it won't be such a bad experience for younger players as well, and encourages better behavior.
So
Not to say that it's bad behavior, but for the context of having like the family friendly version, or if you will, setting it more something like that.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. You can check us out at facebook.com/server restart in. Use the tweet @server_restart. And we'll catch you guys next week. And tweet us your favorite fish. Bye.
Oh God, bye. No, how about you tweet us your favorite pug experience?
Yeah, send us your favorite pug
Right?
experience. Or your
There you
worst.
go.
Favorite or worst. All right,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.